Good day everybody and welcome back to the Great Bollywood Party. I have an exciting episode today and I'd like to go through electronically reprocessed stereo. It's a process that gave us some horrible sounding LPs that happened across Bollywood LPs during the late 1960s and early 70s. Luckily it was a process that lasted for mainly 5 years and there were no releases after that. But let's dive into it and let's look at how this process came about and how it died off. So why the need for fake stereo? Let's just digress a little bit. If we think back in the early 1950s or the late 1950s and early 1960s, globally, stereo sound made a great advent. In order for the music companies to get consumers to buy into stereo, they had to ensure that they could experience it in some way or the other, even on their mono players or mono gear. This led to the invention of fake electronic stereo or electronically reproduced stereo. Look, in all essence, it's horribly sounding, but let's give it to them for trying to invent something to get buyers to buy into stereo sound. On the global scale, that's what happened, and most of the recordings were already done in mono. So in order to capitalize, they shifted most of those to fake stereo. How they did it, we'll get into it at a later point. Let's look at it from the Bollywood side. This technology came to India much later, in I think early 1969, the first LP that appeared with electronically reproduced stereo. But I think more than anything else, EMI or HMV were the global market for Indian records. I think these were the base company that contained majority of the recordings and artists. There was no competition and they had no other things to think about or to worry about other than just produce recordings and let them out. So in terms of upgrading to stereo and stuff, I think maybe it was last on their list. But 1968 saw that change, with the incoming global music giant Polydor reaching Indian shores in 1968. This led HMV to rethink their strategy, and with Polydor coming in 1968, they had the advantage of bringing new stereo equipment with them, opening fresh stereo recordings, and that would give HMV quite a run for its money. That's when HMV or EMI decided, no, we're going to start playing in this game and we're going to release LPs with electronically reproduced stereo. Much of the motivation behind this was basically economic. They wanted to ensure market share and they wanted to ensure that they are first to market with stereo. So what exactly did they do? In 1957, this LP, Film Hits of 1969, was getting done in the studios of HMV. They had years of experience by the global market to take into consideration to get these recordings out in electronic stereo. So all the songs on this particular LP were originally released in mono. So how would they go about getting this into fake stereo? Let's look at the methods at which they used. There were basically 4 methods of getting fake stereo or electronically reproduced stereo. The first method would be splitting frequencies. And as real stereo would have it, they would basically separate instruments on a microphone. This, however, didn't do that. They took the original analog tape and split the frequencies between treble and bass. And they would either increase one frequency to make it sound little different or a little higher pitched, this would create that fake stereo from the first method. The second method they would use is delay and echo. They would reproduce the same analog audio in two streams, and they would play it a few milliseconds less. So they would start one stream and play the other one on a 1.5 or maybe even 2 millisecond delay. This would create a mini echo effect, and they thought it sounded very much like the spatial surround effects of stereo. The third method they would use is phase shifting. What they would do is create a phase shift on one of the audio signals of one of the channels and increase it. This would create movement and space. However, it would have a horrible sounding, unnatural sound. Okay, the fourth method they employed was adding reverberation to one channel on the audio signal. This would create a sort of fake sound where it sounded like the instruments or the vocals were coming from another side of the room. These four methods were the methods they used to employ this fake stereo, and unfortunately we have many LPs that are proof of these methods. Despite the ingenuity of electronically reproduced stereo, this technique faced serious issues. The manipulation of the original mono audio introduced artifacts and distortions that degraded the sound quality. Additionally, the separation of these frequencies resulted in an unbalanced mix, with certain instruments and vocals sounding unnaturally isolated. So, what was Polydor's involvement in getting stereo sound off the ground? Polydor had opened their doors in 1968, thus creating the second major pressing plant in India. They were formed by the Deutsche Grammophon company to produce various labels that were not being produced or pressed in India for distribution. Together with the Bombay's Patel Group, they had formed the Polydor Group, which had been involved in processing of cinefilm and had great connections to the industry. Polydor had thus been able to secure major music contracts, and thus started the big fight between Polydor and the Dum Dum company, or AMI, or the Gramophone company in India, to secure music rights to films. And with this, the whole stereo debacle got exacerbated, as we see the adverts Polydor put out when Sholay released, and they made sure they said released in superb stereo. I have the advert right here. So a part of not only having true stereo recordings and also just having electronically reproduced stereo, could there be other factors that might have affected why we did not get stereo recordings or true stereo recordings at the time when it was available globally? There is one article that I've read through that gives an example of this. So apparently there was a blanket ban on the release of foreign exchange for wasteful expenditure, like the import of electronic equipment, including studio equipment, from the mid-1950s until about 1966. In India, there was a devaluation of the rupee versus various currencies in 1966, after which a small amount of forex were allowed to be used only by the so-called actual users for importing some kind of limited kinds of electronics, including professional studio equipment. The studio probably upgraded the equipment only after 1966. All prior equipment was probably mono-aural. There might have been a few indigenous designs of stereo equipment prior to 1966, but it's unlikely to have been a complete stereo studio setup for recording. So that it might explain why the technology came later to India and why the Polydor company was only formed after 1968. So putting together some stats, I looked at when this occurrence had begun of electronically reproduced stereo and when it ended. Initially, it started off in 1969, when the last recorded year of any LP released with electronically produced stereo in India was 1974. Now this is excluding any presses that were done post 1974, and I'm talking about repressings. So basically an example would be the Dag LP, Lakshmikant Pyarelal, Yash Chopra's film, which were reproduced later as an HFLP or D/HFLP series. I would be excluding those as those were represses. So original LP releases were done between 1969 and 1974. So the next question would be, how do we identify these electronically reproduced for stereo LPs? It was quite simple. Just look at the catalog number. Anything that had a D/ and then the catalog number would indicate a format that was electronically reproduced stereo. I'll take you through some of the examples now, but I think in early occurrence, we discussed the film hits of 1969, but let's look at the first soundtrack that was released with this. The first soundtrack released with electronically reproduced stereo was the illustrious movie by Raj Kapoor called Mera Naam Joker. In the corner, they had put a sign that said electronically reproduced for stereo. I will put the sticker up here. Lighting is not good to show that, but I will work on that. However, when you hear these, it saddens me a bit because there are some great songs. And if you look a bit closer at the catalog number, you will see there was a D/ with the catalog number on it. Now this indicated that these were done with electronic stereo. If I show you the actual LP and I show you the label, you will see that it's there as well. However, this electronically reproduced for stereo is not on the label itself. But yes, this was the first LP released with electronic stereo. The sad part, however, is, and it remains, that the soundtrack is evergreen. Beautiful songs by Shankar Jaikishan. Its double LP release was also marred with the same thing, electronically reproduced for stereo. Sadly, however, it remains to be seen. I don't think there were any recordings of the original mono released for Mera Naam Joker, but this was the one that kicked off this whole sordid process. Mera Naam Joker. So the first set of LPs I showed you, the D/3AEX, were the Angel releases with electronically reproduced stereo. Unfortunately, there were only 3. That film hits of 1969, the double version of Mera Naam Joker, and the single version. Only these 3 releases on the D/3AEX. The next one I'm going to show you is the D/MOCE, which started also 1969, but it released a classical LP by Ustad Bismillah Khan. I'm putting the LP up here so that you can have a look at it, but from the Bollywood side, the first D/MOCE release was background music scores by Noshad. I'm sure they had plans to release this in the mono versions of it. However, as you can see, they pasted a sticker over the catalog number, which has the D/, and this was released in 1970. You will find that on the LP itself. And the DMOCE is the Odeon or Odeon label. It's a superb LP nonetheless. Some of Naushad's greatest background scores, and it's just a testament to the man himself, because great musician, great work. I mean, they even released background music in 1970 for Naushad, as an aside. And the last released on the DMOCE was done in 1976, which was Berag. My apologies, it says 1973. It was Berag, and after doing a check through Discogs, there were 19 original LP releases done on the D/MOCE label. Just bringing it up a bit closer. Let's get it into focus so that you can have a look at it. And that was the D/MOCE releases for electronically reproduced stereo. The next catalog variant would be the D/EALP series, which began in 1973 with Bhupen Hazarika's Arop. As you can see, the catalog numbers at DEALP. There were quite a significant amount of great soundtracks that were marred by these electronically produced for stereo LPs. There's the LP cover. Hope it can. There we go. It started off in 1973 with Arop, and luckily it only ended a year afterwards with the release of Lakshmikant Pyarilal's Amir Gharib, DEALP, on the top here. And this is the LP for it. As you can see, this is called the Red Dog label, because it had the dog with a gramophone record player in color. And that's another topic I'll drive through in one episode in the future, talking about all the different labels. So the D/EALP series had only 12 releases, fortunately. Another variant was the D/MOCEC, which was quite similar to the Odeon MOCE releases, only the last C at the end stand for Columbia, which then moved to Sony. And luckily there was only one release, but it was R.D. Burman's Jesako Tesa, or Jeseko Tesa, I apologize. And if you see, it had DMOCEC, the beautiful electronically reprocessed for stereo up there. Let's take a look at the LP. I'll be able to gauge the catalog number from there. These Columbia releases, after the change of LPs from Angel and Odeon to other brands, which was the Red Dog HMV release, the other format was the Columbia release, and then this took the effect of E33ESX. I don't know how clear that comes across here, but if you look at it here, it had D/33ESX, and these were the ones that were done beginning at 1973 for Rickshawala by R.D. Burman. And concluded with Burman Senior's Prem Nagar. Superb soundtracks. If you look here, you're going to see the code on the top there. Let me just give you a quick note of the LP. You can see, and this was 1974. So luckily there were only 3 releases on this EA33ESX variant with electronically reproduced stereo. So scouring the internet, looking through all these catalog numbers, these are the ones I came across for now. So with the LPs, there were also 7-inch 33 1/3 Super 7 LPs released, which had these electronically stereo processed. On there, I'm going to take you through 3 examples of which started in 1973 and ended off in 1974. The first of the series was the D/LMOE series, which had a total of 15 releases. This is just one example of it. You will see it was written on the top there, electronically processed for stereo, D/LMOE. Here's the actual record, and these started out in 1973 right up to 1974. This D/LMOE series had 15 releases. Then we move on to the next one, which was the D/SLDE, which was released in 1974, and this was the Columbia releases with the electronically processed for stereo sign on it. In 1974, this D/SLDE had only 1 release, and this was Noshad's Aina. Then the next one was the D7LP series, which was the Red Dog label, as they would call it. And there were 10 releases. Of these particular catalog numbers, D/7LPE. So one important thing to note while we tally up the amount of releases that had been given the electronically reprocessed treatment is that these electronically reprocessed stereo recordings were carried through on all formats after this LP release. They were released on cassettes, CDs, and made it all the way up to the digital platforms. This is the only way you can hear them now on the digital streaming platforms. Not that it would make much to a person who's just wanting to hear the song, but for a person who's an enthusiast and who knows the difference, who treasures the quality of a good analog warm sound, will understand and realize the value of getting these recordings in the original mono format. One redeeming factor from HMV is that they have released a certain amount of songs on 7-inch LPs with the mono recordings of some of the recordings on Odeon, but BOE. This particular one is not an example of that, but they did use that BOE code or catalog number to release. So a good example would be Abhiman, which was released on the D/MOCE, but had all the songs released on a 7-inch BOE catalog number release in the mono format. So luckily I have a few examples to present to you, which I would like to thank a good friend from the US, Mr. Muzaffar. Much appreciated for all your efforts in getting these recordings to me. I don't own these 7-inch LPs. Hopefully hoping to getting my hands on some of them. Sorry, I mentioned LPs, they are EPs, but I hope to someday get a hold of some of them. But for now, he's recorded them and he sent them off to me, and I would like you to hear the difference between them. What I would do is play the original LP releases that were done with the electronically reproduced stereo, and then after that play the same song using the mono format that it was originally recorded in. Here we go.
अब चाहे मारो उठे या बाबा यारा मैंने तो हाँ कर ली अब चाहे मारो उठे या बाबा यारा मैंने तो हाँ कर ली अब चाहे सर फूटे या माथा मैंने तेरी बाह पकड़ ली अब चाहे सर फूटे या माथा मैंने तेरी बाह पकड़ ली मैंने तुझ पे नियत भर ली मैंने हंसकर हामी भर ली यारी छूटे ना हाँ कर ली तो कर ली अब चाहे मारो उठे या बाबा यारा मैंने तो हाँ कर ली अब चाहे सर फूटे या माथा मैंने तेरी बाह पकड़ ली अब चाहे मारो उठे या बाबा यारा मैंने तो हाँ कर ली अब चाहे मारो उठे या बाबा यारा मैंने तो हाँ कर ली अब चाहे सर फूटे या माथा मैंने तेरी बाह पकड़ ली अब चाहे सर फूटे या माथा मैंने तेरी बाह पकड़ ली मैंने तुझ पे नियत धर ली मैंने हंसकर हामी भर ली यारी छूटे ना हाँ कर ली तो कर ली अब चाहे मारो उठे या बाबा यारा मैंने तो हाँ कर ली अब चाहे सर फूटे या माथा मैंने तेरी बाह पकड़ ली जब भी जी चाहे नई दुनिया लगा लेते हैं लोग जब भी जीता है नई दुनिया बसा लेते हैं लोग एक चेहरे पे कई चेहरे लगा लेते हैं लोग एक चेहरे पे कई चेहरे लगा लेते हैं लोग याद रहता है किसे गुजरे जमाने का चलन बाहों में चले आओ बाहों में चले आओ हमसे सनम क्या पर्दा हो हमसे सनम क्या पर्दा ये आज का नहीं मिलन ये संग है उम्र भर का बाहों में चले आओ हमसे सनम क्या पर्दा हो बाहों में चले आओ बाहों में चले आओ हमसे सनम क्या पर्दा हो हमसे सनम क्या पर्दा ये आज का नहीं मिलन ये संग है उम्र भर का बाहों में चले आओ हमसे सनम क्या पर्दा हो हाँ पिया बिना बसिया बाजे ना बाजे ना बाजे ना पिया बिना पिया बिना पिया बिना बसिया
Electronically reprocessed stereo presents a unique chapter in the history of recorded music. It was a creative solution to a commercial problem, albeit not a very good one. While the process might have not created the highest quality sound, it did eventually pave the way for many to go from mono to stereo, and also pave the way for the high quality audio fidelity that we listen to today. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation I have today, and I hope that it brings to light, especially when you hear the tinny sound of some of these LPs, that there's some understanding as to how it came about. But please tell me what you'd like to see, like to hear. I would love your suggestions. I could talk about many other things in the future. I have a few good videos planned which are going to come out soon. But please do write in the comment section how you felt. So if you've made it through to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. It's been a crazy journey up to now, but I really appreciate all the likes, shares and subscribes, and please do continue doing that if you would like to see much more of these kind of videos. I know on the Bollywood side we lack these kind of technical aspects to the quality of sound and things, but hopefully I can start bridging that gap with my videos.